Welcome to today's story, one that begins quietly but unravels into a betrayal so cold, so calculated, it changes a man forever. Stay tuned until the end, because nothing here is as simple as it first appears. Lydia came home from work with a faint smile on her lips, the kind of smile that hinted she'd been holding onto a private thought all day. Without saying much, she slipped off her heels, leaving them neatly in the corner of the living room, and headed straight for the bathroom. For nearly 40 minutes, she stayed in there. Shower running, blow-dryer humming, the occasional clink of cosmetic bottles against the sink. She wasn't rushing. She was crafting something. In the kitchen, her husband, Nathan, stirred a pot of pasta sauce, sprinkling in a pinch of oregano. He noticed the effort she was putting into her appearance, though she hadn't mentioned any special occasion. Lately they'd been drifting. Not in a dramatic shouting match kind of way, but in that slow, quiet erosion many marriages know too well. Work, bills, routines, they had taken over. Still, Nathan thought maybe tonight could be a turning point. When Lydia finally joined him at the table, the air between them was the usual end-of-week fatigue. They traded the small silences that come after long days, until Lydia began speaking about the office. She mentioned rumors of restructuring, possible layoffs, and a coveted leadership position that might soon open. Nathan listened closely. Lydia was ambitious, fiercely so, and he had always admired that about her. But as she talked, her tone shifted, and the details began to feel unsettling. She explained that her boss, Adrian, would be the one making the final decision. He wasn't openly favoring anyone, but he had a selective closeness with certain female employees. Nathan wasn't sure where this was going, but then she put her fork down and locked eyes with him, not nervously but deliberately, as though she'd rehearsed this moment. What came next hit him like ice water. She told him she'd made a decision, one that might sound crazy at first but was, in her words, strategic, rational and selfless. On Friday after work, she would be meeting Adrian at a hotel. Yes, she said, it was exactly what it sounded like. Yes, she had already agreed. It would be a one-time thing. No feelings, no emotional betrayal, just a transaction for their future. One night to change everything, she said, almost proudly. Nathan stared at her, searching for a hint that this was a joke or some twisted test. But her eyes held nothing but cold certainty. She even framed it as honesty, claiming it was better to tell him than to hide it. She hoped, she said, that he was mature enough to understand. Nathan lifted his wine glass, swirled it once, and drank it all in a single motion. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't push his chair back in outrage. He simply went quiet, not because he agreed, but because something inside him had already begun to shift. That night, as she slept, he lay awake, staring at her face in the dark. He looked for the woman he'd once chosen, the partner he'd imagined growing old with. But she was gone, replaced by someone who could reduce their vows to a career move. In that stillness, Nathan made a decision. The next morning, while she was in the shower, he quietly took her handbag from the bed and, with careful precision, sewed a tiny microphone into its side pocket. It was discreet, undetectable, and capable of transmitting live audio directly to his phone. Later, at exactly 11:28 a.m., he heard her chatting with a friend at work. Laughter, casual weekend plans, until Adrian's voice cut in. The tone of the conversation shifted instantly. Adrian asked if Friday night was still on. Lydia confirmed she'd already booked the room. There were muffled kisses, whispered promises. Enough for Nathan to know there were no more doubts. That's when his plan accelerated. He dialed a number he had found in Lydia's phone earlier that week. Adrian's wife, Valerie. Her voice was cold, suspicious. Nathan introduced himself, explained who he was, and laid out the situation. He told her about the hotel meeting, the audio recordings, the proof. First, there was silence on the line. Then Valerie's voice hardened. "I'll be there," she said. "And I'll make sure neither of them walks away clean." Friday night arrived. Lydia left dressed as if she were attending a formal gala. Nathan even opened the car door for her, smiling as though nothing was amiss. As soon as she drove away, he opened the live feed from the hidden microphone. He heard the hotel lobby, the elevator, footsteps down the carpeted hallway. Then Adrian's voice, then kisses, then the rustle of clothing. And then 3 sharp knocks on the door. Valerie's voice sliced through the air. "Open the door, Adrian. I know exactly who's in there with you." When the door opened, she walked in with her phone recording, her voice raised, her fury unfiltered. She caught everything, the sheets, the expressions, the shame. By the time she left, the video was already sent to the company's president. Nathan's phone buzzed a few minutes later. Mission accomplished. That was his cue. Within 10 minutes, he transferred every dollar from their joint accounts into his name, cancelled Lydia's cards, locked her out of the house by changing the smart lock code, and placed her packed suitcases in the garage. When she came home just before midnight, the keypad rejected her code. Nathan's voice came from the other side of the door. "Your divorce papers are under the door. Your bags are in the garage. Take them and go." She tried pleading, insisting she had done it for them. Nathan's reply was ice cold. "You did it for yourself. Now live with it." By the next morning, both Lydia and Adrian had lost their jobs, their marriages, and their reputations. Valerie filed for divorce. Lydia was left without a home, an income, or anyone willing to take her side. The video and screenshots had circulated through the company like wildfire. Nathan never looked back. Because some betrayals don't need shouting, they're loud enough in the silence they leave behind. If you found this story gripping, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. These stories aren't just entertainment, they're reminders of how far betrayal can go, and how clarity can be the most powerful form of revenge.